everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. We were hoping to have a bigger turnout, but I guess we have too many overscheduled parents and to show, but we will have this. If you have friends that wanted to come, you can let them know that we will have a podcast, we will be streaming it on YouTube, and we're happy to have you guys here. So this will give everyone who's here more time to answer some questions. So, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and I want to thank our distinguished panel. We have a great panel tonight. We have a lot of support in the community. We have Plainfield Counseling Center and one of our Plainfield Parent Community Network committee members, Corey Gordon, is in Plainfield Counseling Center, so thank you to them for sponsoring our event. And then I would like to thank myself. Hi, my name is Nicole Nepper, and I'm a clinical therapist and gerontologist with Ride the Wave Wellness in Plainfield. And I'd like to thank Plainfield School District 202 because they've done a wonderful job supporting us. They, support our paperwork and press releases, and they really help us get the word out there. So we're really grateful for that. Before we get started tonight, I would just like to tell you a little bit about who we are. So who are we? So you see in our programs, we are the Plainfield Parent Community Network, and we are all volunteers. So here with you tonight are myself. I've introduced myself, Nicole Nepper. Then we have Corey Gordon, who's back there. Say hi, Corey. Hello. Kai Freeman, he's over here. He's the principal of Droughton Point Middle School. Tim Alvarez, he's the director of student services for Plainfield School District 202. We have Jenny Hamby. I don't know where Jenny is. Oh, Jenny's outside checking people in. Jenny is a parent in the district, but she's also a marketing professional. And then we have Brian Sorg. I don't know where Mr. Sorg is. He's in the media center. And he is the principal of Meadowview Elementary School. We have Mary Ellen Miller, and she's a clinical director at Plainfield Academy. And Christine Belcastro. I don't know where Christine is. There she is. Christine's a social worker at Plainfield East High School. So what we're just hoping to do is provide resources for families in the community, new additional skills and knowledge just to help you manage your lives better, to learn more about how to help your students and your families. Our past events have been on internet safety, addiction, mindfulness, anxiety. We had a big event last time on anxiety, substance abuse, letting kids fail, and we really are hoping that to continue to do this. So I would like to start and introduce you to our awesome, distinguished panel. We have with us tonight Stephanie Kennedy, and she's the president of Kennedy Educational Services and co-founder of My College Planning Team. She holds a master's in counseling and college student development, and she's a former admissions counselor. Stephanie has read hundreds and hundreds of college applications and assisted thousands of students in adjustment to college and forging their educational path. And fun fact, she has worked at 7 different universities. That's a lot. We were going to have a gentleman named Marty here tonight, but he had a death in the family. So the wonderful Jessica Butts has agreed to fill in, and she's a clinical social worker from Linden Oaks. And she's an adolescent outpatient unit for the past 3 years. She's worked in community mental health and outpatient therapy and school counseling and foster care. And we have with us Christina Pavlich. She likes to be called Chris. Fun fact about Chris, she's a sports fanatic. Oh, I forgot to tell you the fun fact about Jessica. She has 6.5-year-old twins, and her pug is more high maintenance. So about Chris, she's master's in social work and has experience as a crisis counselor. She's been a school social worker in Plainfield for 18 years, working in the elementary and middle school levels, so she is intimately familiar with the struggles that families in our district have. Her current role is at Walker's Grove Elementary. And then we have wonderful, wonderful students on our panel tonight. Her name is Lauren, and I'm going to butcher her last name, even though I've talked to her many times. Sranowski? Close. It's so close. Fun fact, she's a Virgo. She likes long walks on the beach. The reason that Lauren is here tonight is she's going to give us a unique student perspective. She has dealt with being overscheduled and frazzled herself, and really, she's going to tell you her story. Before I get started tonight, I just wanted to share something. Why do we choose these topics? Right? It's sort of, interesting. These aren't mine. It's a little bit of a visual, so so we will see if it's here. No? Okay, so while Tim's finding the slide, really quick, why do we pick these topics? It's not just because they're hot topics and everybody's talking about them. The big reason we pick these topics is because we can integrate them with mental health topics. And there's so much going on at the school levels. Our kids are there, they're trying to get educated, they're trying to socialize, they're trying to monitor and manage so many things about growing up, right? And oftentimes we push mental health to the side. You'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. But then people aren't fine. And so we want to just keep equipping people with the resources on how to be fine and how to know where to go if you're not fine. Because there are resources out there. So I'm gonna jump over this slide because really at this point, I think it's not even important. So we're gonna get started tonight with Ms. Stephanie Kennedy.
Thank you so much. Testing the volume, all right? Okay, so we're starting with the end goal here, college. You all are concerned about college, no matter where your student is at this point. I know you're thinking, eyes on the prize, will they get into college? How will I get my child into the right college? Because that will launch their career, that will make them happy, that will make me satisfied and proud, and I will have a happy retirement, and that's my goal, correct? Reality is, you're concerned about college. If you have, how many of you have high school students right now? Just to give me an idea. Okay, so I don't care if they're freshmen or juniors or sophomores or seniors. It doesn't really matter. But this is about the time in your life that you're starting to think, oh my gosh, have I done this right? Parent guilt starts to be an epidemic, particularly as you start to think about college and you're thinking, are they in enough activities? Are your grades good enough? What have I done to make sure that they're going to pass the grade, as it were, to get into the right colleges? So, I'm going to put this in perspective for you a little bit because I'm putting on my admissions counselor hat. As Nicole said, I've been at 7 different universities and colleges across the nation as an admissions counselor, but also in the student life realm as well, helping students thrive in the college environment. So now I work with families as they try to find the right colleges for their students. And I see everything from parents coming in and saying, Mrs. Kennedy, my student is perfect, so Harvard awaits, just get them into Harvard. By the way, I don't do that. I don't get your child anywhere. I help them find the right college. To the other family that says, when I ask about, so what's your academic life like? What do you do in high school? Well, the student says, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but deer in the headlights, I study 11 hours a day. I don't do anything else because I want to be valedictorian and that will get me into the college of my choice. Neither of these are realistic situations, right? But there's stress on both of them. So, you're probably not in that situation, thank you. But are you worried about how many activities your child should be in? How do they possibly balance all the things that they should be doing? Grades are most important. Activities are important. But in fact, it's more important that they're engaged in realistic ways. For those of you that went to college, I can assure you that college admissions and the college selection process is different today than it was in the 80s, 70s, 90s that you were there. It's a very different process. And no matter if you have the Ivy League in your sights for your child, or if it's just our local community college and our state schools, it doesn't matter. Your child deserves a college that fits them, not a college that will make you proud to wear the sweatshirt, okay? So think about what's right for your child, not what will just be the right situation for you. Often I have to tell parents, your child is too smart for the Ivy League, so let's bring it down a little bit. So I like to think of, when we talk about college expectations, I like to tell a student who's saying, well, how many activities should I have? Have I done enough? Think of your child in this metaphor, a chair. A student is a chair. They have to have a very strong back on them, right? A strong back to the chair, otherwise they're going to fall over. That back that extends down to a strong leg is the academics, most important part of the whole chair. Then we've got to have a leg on that. That leg is some other major activity. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's music, maybe it's drama, maybe it's speech, maybe it's their exceptional volunteer, maybe it's something they do with their place of worship, something like that. But no chair balances on two legs. Don't trick me, the physics people. A chair has to have 3 legs to balance, right? So there should be at least one other major activity. So in addition to that one strong one, another one. The more selective colleges and more elite colleges expect a 4th leg, but not everybody has to have a 4th leg to be successful in their college admission process. So back to the colleges, what are they looking for? Number 1, academic achievement. Grades are most important. Success and rigor. Take as rigorous of courses as you can do well in. Don't take the easy A. That's not going to help you. And involvement in activities, but in a way that contributes to your community. That's what colleges are looking for. Have you been involved in activities just because it's all about you? Or is it about being able to give back in some way? Have you been, can you show that I've been a member of a team, that I contributed to the speech and drama organization or student government? Have I invested myself in my community? Sometimes, often, that community is your high school. Sometimes that community, again, is your town. Sometimes it's your place of worship. Sometimes it's your family. Sometimes it's a part-time job. If you take a job in the summer or during the year and you come home from work smelling like salami sandwiches because you work at the local sub shop, good for you. Colleges recognize the value of that. You work on a team, you take direction well, you have to show trustworthiness. That's a good thing. Okay, here's another thing that colleges look for. Ability to handle adversity. Can you show that life has not been just an easy road for you the whole time? You were not just born with a silver spoon in your mouth? Can you handle yourself and carry yourself emotionally? That counts for them. Why? Because you're going away to college. You have to have some of that confidence and ability to handle adversity. Can you bounce back from difficulty? And ability to work and not always be on top. Okay, why are they looking for these qualities? Because these are all predictors of success in college. Academically, socially, emotionally, all matter. Colleges are businesses too. They're not just places of education. If they recruit a student, one of the major issues that they are concerned about is, will this student stay? Will they persist? Why? Because they just invested a few $1,000s into recruiting that student. And they do care about their student success. So, they want to be able to predict, will the student stay here? When I worked in colleges a few years ago, college counseling offices were kind of dead places. They did a lot of outreach, they did a lot of programming, but you didn't see students streaming into those offices. Today on a college campus, if you go on college visits with your students, you'll hear them say, oh yes, we've got college counseling, and you get a free 10 visits to the counseling office. And you say, what happens after 10 visits? They say, oh, we refer you off campus, and then you have to pay. That is something new in the past few years. College counseling offices have a limit. They're overcrowded, they're packed, they're bursting at the seams. It's become an epidemic. 1 in 5 students is going to suffer, on a college campus, is going to suffer from either high anxiety or depression. It's a problem. So how can you help prevent that? Well, I'm going to tell you a story. Try not to be this parent. I promise you, she's not in the audience. She's somewhat made up, but she's partly true. I had a parent come in to me. She hired me for my services, and I met with her son, who was a delight, so much fun to work with. He's a successful engineer right now. But she came in and she said, I have to tell you, I want you to help me with my son. He's such an introvert. You have got to help him become an extrovert. That's the only way he's going to be successful in this world. He's far too shy, and he just doesn't know how to get out there and be the way he needs to be. Not going to happen. Not going to turn him into an extrovert. And I kindly, in my best counseling way, helped her see that he is everything he needed to be right now. Our society does not like introverts. We're a minority. We think that we're just not going to make it. And parent after parent after parent says, how are you going to teach my very shy children to get out there and show that, be the people they need to be able to speak in public and not be shy and get out there and show themselves? Believe me, they'll learn how to do it. They find the right college, they get the right opportunities, they will be okay. However, you can do something as a parent. You can certainly support them, challenge them, but if your student is a junior in high school, there's probably not all that much that you can do to change them. You've done your job, parents. It's not over yet, but you're not going to change them. And I'll say that as a parent myself. I have a college senior and a 2-year-old college graduate. They're really going to be just fine because you've done the groundwork, you've built the foundation, they're going to be fine. Instead of forcing them to pad their resume, let's do a little mind shift. What can you do? By the time they're juniors, you can recognize that you have a fully formed, beautiful, wonderful young adult. Most of you, I know you feel that, and I know you understand that, but there are days, right? They're not lazy, they're not completely flawed, but you can help them to build their emotional confidence. I just recently listened to a webinar on the same topic, so this isn't just coming from me. I hear this over and over and over again, that the greatest gift you can give your child is the opportunity to build their own self-confidence, their own academic independence. Do you hear that, parents? Their own academic independence. They're going to fail once in a while. And what's the gift in that? That they pick themselves up from their bootstraps and they learn how to fix it. Failure is not a bad thing. It's one of the questions on the Common App. How did you do that? And then help them find their own sources of emotional support. They're going to need it. If they can't go off to college and learn how to be homesick and how to get over it, or how to get over the first rejection from a friend, girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, the first time they maybe fail a quiz, they're not going to survive. They have to have experienced that. And so give them the opportunity to fail without their world ending. So allow them to be who they are, so that they can go out into the world of college, of work, or tech school with a sense of empowerment and true confidence. Are you still worried about them not getting into Harvard? Every single one of your children has a college that will be the right fit and will embrace them and say, you are exactly the student that we are looking for. Even though you're not perfect and don't have the perfect 1600 ACT and a 4.5 GPA, and 18 activities and leadership opportunities that everybody else you think has. And we even have scholarships to get you to afford this college. Your colleges are out there. Just help them be emotionally confident.
Well, I'm going to start off with a video just that shows us a little bit about what overscheduled looks like. Bear with us for a second.
How did our passion for activities begin? It was the kids. What are you guys up to? Tennis. We have an hour to go between Spanish and fencing. How about you? We're just hanging. I thought we'd sign up for a few things. I'm so excited.
好，今天我们要学中文。
Never too early to start. Everybody, let's go kick some butt.
Yeah, that's fine. And then the other one had a complete panic attack in front of all of her friends in the middle, and she started to cry, and she started to panic, saying, "I can't. I have a test tomorrow, and I don't get an A on that test, then I won't get an A in class. And if I don't get an A in class, then I won't be the top of the class." And that's her ultimate goal. And so, as the mom and coach there, I leaned over to my daughter and I said, "Do you have to study?" and she was like, "No." But what I really learned in that situation is that I know everything. I mean, my calendar, if you see it, I have everything written out of what I know for my kids' schedules and all of that. I had no idea what she had on her academic plate. I had no idea. I didn't know that she had a project or study. I had no idea she had a test. So I'm committing her to a game or something, and I had no idea. And that other mom didn't either, but she also didn't know the stress level that her daughter was feeling at that time and what that was causing her. So I really learned that I have to ask before I commit her to something about her homework, about her schoolwork, about all of that, because again, I'm committing her to something that I don't know what she fully has, because I don't get too involved in their school and put that independence on them, but I hope that they would tell me. And I learned, the second thing I learned is that anxiety level that that other student was having, and that's what I see in the school a lot. When kids come to see me, a lot of the times it's because they are stressed out, because they didn't study or feel prepared for the test. So they come in and they don't, they didn't want to tell their parents that they had that because they know, we put that stress on them, paying for those private lessons or whatever we're paying for, and they're afraid that if they tell their parent that, then their parents will be, upset or they won't let them. I'm a believer in letting your kids miss those practices or miss those things, especially for academics, because that is a priority. I think that family time and that academic time is definitely a priority. So those are some of my little quick stories, but like I said, I'm a work in progress as a parent. I learn all the time from my kids. I think we do too. It's just whether or not we're open to that and open to accepting when our kids tell us that they have too much on their plate, allowing them to take things off of their plate. I think when I look at why do we overschedule and why do we do that for kids, I think we have a lot of really good reasons why we do that. We want our kids to have a great life experience. We want them to feel good. We want them to be able to find out what their interests are. We want them to be able to develop positive relationships. But we also do it for some selfish reasons. Well, I don't know if it's really selfish, but maybe we feel guilty because we're working full time. So we allow them to be in whatever they want to be in, not realizing how much stress that's putting on them, how much, I guess there's so much stress that's putting on them. We also worry about, we put them in so many different activities because we worry about them not getting that college scholarship. If I don't get them in this, then, if they're not in AP classes or they're not taking those an honor class, then they're not going to get into that college work. So we push them and get them tutoring classes and all of this instead of just accepting maybe where they're at. We also look at, like I said, in some of the other things, we look at that structure time, and we're afraid of that downtime, so we keep them involved. I guess the question to ask is, how do we know it's too much for our kids or our family? And I believe that one, they'll tell us, and whether they're not telling us verbally, they'll tell us with their actions and how they're, if they're misbehaving or if they're seeming a little more depressed, if they're pulling themselves out of things. We also have to pay attention to some of those signs, like those meltdowns like that other child had, for something that might be really little. One thing to look at is how if I'm stressed out, most likely they're going to be stressed out. If we're arguing in the car all the time, maybe it's time to maybe pull back and look at what we have. If I read by Jerry Broderick, he's a clinical psychologist at the Child Mind Institute. He wrote 4 questions to help your student determine if they might be overscheduled. And the 4 things is, can you still do homework? Can you still get 8 hours of sleep each night? Can you still hang out with your friends? And can you still be a part of the family? And if you can answer yes, then you're probably doing pretty good if they're staying emotionally healthy. But if you're answering no to one or more of those, then it really probably is time to look at what can we take off the plate, what can we prioritize and see what we need to keep on and what we don't. And then, I talked a little bit about how does overschedule manifest in the school setting, and like I said, a lot of it, as I see it, anxiety is most of it, but when I see some of the things we see in the classroom, has to do with the shutting down, not getting their work done, not turning in work, difficulty working independently is one, difficulty knowing what to do in that free time and that unstructured time. And then socially, we also see some of the things that would be more like isolating themselves a little bit, maybe removing themselves away from their friends and not hanging out with them as much, maybe having more conflicts with them. So how can we help? I talked about some of the things. I think the biggest thing is to teach advocacy skills, to teach that time management. How do we work through this? To make sure that that family time is important, to allow for that downtime and that allow them to be bored so they can figure out what to do when they don't know what to do. And my last thing I want to say is just that what do kids want? They want to have fun. They want to be with their friends. They want to play without the rules and the pressure of winning or the pressure of being the best player or the best academically. They want to be independent and make their own decisions, and they want parents. They want to make you proud. So I guess for me, the biggest thing is to stay in the moment, to live in the here and now, not focus on what happened in the past, but not stress about what you think might happen in the future, but to focus on how they keep them emotionally stable and healthy right here and right now. I'm going to introduce Lauren.
I apologize. Before we keep going, one of the things I learned is sometimes when you're in a hurry, you miss things, and I missed a few things. In your pamphlet here that we have, the little booklet, you have a little note card. So please use this note card to write down any questions you have for our panelists, because we will be answering questions. We will be open to answering questions afterward. And there's also a survey in the pamphlet too, and if you could fill that out for us, we would really appreciate it. Just a few questions, and if you need a pen, raise your hand. We'll try to get a pen and help you fill it out. But again, so feel free, these little note cards, if you have a question for anybody in our panel, they would be happy to answer the ones that they can. Thank you.
We're just going to introduce
Hello? Okay, good, this one works. Alright, hi everyone, I'm Lauren. As they told you, I am a senior at Plainfield South, so coming here kind of confused me because it's all backwards, but that's fine. Like they said, I'm here to kind of tell you my story because I had a rough junior year last year, and part of it was definitely due to just me overscheduling myself. I was taking 4 AP classes. I was in 2 clubs, and I was the captain of one of them. And I was working a job that had me work about 25 to 35 hours a week, and that was a little much. As far as those 4 questions she asked, I wasn't able to do most of them. The first thing that led to was me shutting down and kind of not being able to do any of those things correctly. So it kind of was showing in all aspects of my life. I didn't want to get out of bed, I didn't want to do my homework, everything just felt like too much for me, and so I just kind of decided not to do anything. Unfortunately for me, this led to me having to leave 2 months of school because I had been diagnosed with major depression, generalized anxiety, and I had to get some help, which kind of made the entire situation go downhill because instead of picking one thing that was important and working hard for it, I kind of lost everything in that moment. So one of the main things I want to share today, I guess from my point of view, would be the importance of just remembering that your kids are still kids. Like, I was trying to do everything in my power. I was trying to be a kid, an adult, a student, and it was all just too much for me at that moment. And I believe that's a major thing that led to my depression, because when you're trying to do so many things, you really can't do any of them. And so, in general, I was just feeling like a failure. Because I wouldn't step back from anything, because I didn't want to quit. Because I feel like as we're kids, we're always told, try your best, work harder, don't quit, push yourself, you can do it. So it gets to the point where, at least for me, I felt like my best wasn't enough, because when I was giving my all, people were still telling me to push forward and to try harder and keep doing things that I didn't feel like I could do, but I feel like I'd be disappointing someone if I didn't. So that was one of my main stressors, and unfortunately half of those were coming from myself, because I put too much pressure on myself in general. But that was a big issue. One of my big, I guess, like explanations is I was taking AP Chem. That was the 4th AP class I decided to take. And after everything kind of went down, I was out of school, I looked at my schedule and I saw that class and I kind of basically laughed, because I have no interest in chemistry. I'm not going to do anything with chemistry. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great, but it's not for me. I was taking it just to take an AP class, just to look good. Basically at that point I was working just to work, and it didn't really have a purpose or a point, which kind of made everything feel pointless because I felt like I wasn't working for anything. Unfortunately for me, this made it so that life felt hard in general, like it was too hard to live, and so I didn't want to live anymore because it seemed too hard. Because these expectations I built up for myself seemed like they were the only option and the only way to go. So I didn't realize that stepping back was an option, because I felt like I would have been quitting. And so at that point in my life, I felt like the only way out, the only way to step back would be to no longer live, which is one of the main things I had to leave to get help for. Now, while that's an extreme example of someone that stressed themselves out to the point of overscheduling themselves, I'm just here to say that it really can happen. That everyone has a breaking point, and while everyone should challenge themselves, like now, I'm still in 3 AP classes. I have a job, but they're flexible with my hours. I'm still a captain of one of my clubs. I'm still challenging myself. But I'm challenging myself at things I'm passionate about, and I'm not drowning myself in these challenges. So that's kind of to my main point about how everyone has limits, whether it's yourself or your kids. I had to find my limits the hard way. I had to push myself past that breaking point and find what they were. Unfortunately, that led to some bad things of doing it, but at the very least now, I know that trying my best is my best. I don't have to push myself because I'm not working to get into Harvard or because I want to do something to make it look good for my future. I have to do things that I'm passionate about, that I want to do. I have to remember to live in the present instead of focusing on that future. And while I know that college and jobs and a career in the future are really important, I have to remind myself that so is my life now as a teenager, as a kid in high school. I had to remind myself that that life is just as important as my future. And I had to take a step back to look. It was getting so bad for me that as far as the friends aspect, I was becoming very distant and withdrawn. And I didn't want to do anything social, so unfortunately most of my friends left me because I was too sad or too out of it. And that was kind of like my big wake-up call, that I was forcing myself to try to do everything so much that everything was escaping me, coming away from me. And I feel like that's a big thing you can realize, especially with your kids, because it was very clear when I wasn't socializing anymore, when I was crying all the time because I didn't have any friends or I felt overwhelmed. My parents were able to see that and do something about that. Personally, I got put into therapy, which helped me again realize those points of how to live my life to the fullest and how to remember that I don't have to be Wonder Woman. I'm not perfect. And while all this pressure is on the world, and I always see or feel like, oh, well, these people people are involved in 20 clubs, and these people have a 5.9 GPA. That might not be as realistic for me, but that doesn't make me any less than them. I also would like to speak to the fact that I ended up in Linden Oaks Outpatient Center, which is at the Edward Building right over down the road. And I will say that that is a great program that helped taught me the importance of what positive stress is, as opposed to the point where you can't handle it anymore. And I learned those big key differences about how to be mindful of where I am and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and help build back up my confidence to prove to me why life is worth living if we're living it with a purpose for ourselves. I would also like to speak to how schools can generally be extremely helpful for your students if you notice them stressing out or their grades slipping. It really is helpful to go and talk to your students' counselors or the teachers or the social workers, because my mom personally went to one of the counselors, and that's how all of my help got started. They talked to me, they helped tell me about these other plans, these other things I could be doing to make my life more livable, to make it something that I would want to do. So I very much owe a lot to the counselors at the school and everything that's going on there, and I find that it's an extremely important resource that a lot of people don't know to or don't think to use, just because they think the kids should be able to handle it on their own, or you as the family should be able to handle it on their own, and that's not necessarily true. There's something out there that I would like to tell you about called a 504 plan, or an IEP. It's something that I have personally. It's for students that need extra help or accommodations. It isn't like exceptions to the rules. It isn't giving them special treatment, but it's just something that's helped me get through the school day. For instance, I went to my counselors and the social workers, and I had a meeting, and I talked about how sometimes I get really stressed in class and I just shut down, and I need to just get out of there because it gets intense. And that's why I didn't want to come to school, because I felt trapped. And so they gave me a pass where if I need to step out in the hallway, I can step out in the hallway for a minute. Things as simple as that they can give you to truly help. That made it easier for me to go back to school and want to start trying again with my life. Like I said, this year I still extremely challenge myself, because I still want to work hard and be a great, well-rounded person. Just because I challenge myself too hard doesn't mean I don't want to stop trying. But the thing is, now the classes I'm taking, I'm in AP Psychology, which is something I've been wanting to take since my freshman year. I'm taking AP Literature because I love to read. And these classes, they still look great to colleges and admissions, but I'm passionate about it. So it makes it more fun, more interesting. It makes it worth doing. I feel like I have that purpose back, that I'm working for something. I'm not just working to work to make myself look good. All in all, I had to remember that if I'm making myself work so hard just to look good for something else, then I'm just genuinely going to lose who I am as a person. And so as a child, I had to remind myself the importance of that general idea that my life is my life in the end, and it's going to be what I make of it. Whether I'm using it now or later, no matter what, I have to start making myself happy and make my life worth living now, because it was getting to the point where I was just living for a future, and I was drowning myself, so I might not even have been able to get to that future because of it. So one of the big things I want to say, as far as from a parent point of view, which you can do for your kids, is really just pay attention and notice. My parents started to notice that I was lagging behind, and that I didn't want to do anything, and that my friends were leaving me. And I just kept resisting. I kept saying, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. No, I did my homework already, it's all fine. But if you can see that there's something different, that just because they're saying they're fine, it's always, again, a good use to use the schools, or to really ask and listen. Because as a kid, we don't want to admit we can't do things. You're always told that you can do anything, you should be the best. But at a certain point, you have to admit to yourself that you can't do something. But as a kid, it feels overwhelming. It feels like you're a failure. It's the hardest thing to say. I ended up dropping that AP Chem class because it was one of the things that was just killing me. I had to drop out of Chem. I got a new job because the one I had wasn't accommodating for me. And I would like to think that I'm still going to get in the college I want because I feel like I'm a well-rounded person. I struggled through that, I come out to the other side, and I continue to work hard. I'm gonna be honest. Thank you. I'm gonna be honest, I ended up failing that AP chemistry class, but my GPA is still well in where it needs to be to get into my dream college. I failed and I was able to come back from it, and I think that's what's really important, and that I learned that it's okay to step back and it's okay to fail. So thank you.
That was such a great story. Congratulations, and I hope you do get into your dream school. I'm covering for Marty. Marty wanted to be here today, but he had a death in the family, so kind of an impromptu panel person. I think he had a clip that he wanted to show. Do we have it? If we don't, that's okay too. Oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. So I work at the Linden Oaks Adolescent Outpatient Center. I work with the middle schoolers. So right now, we're still kind of slow. We don't have a whole lot of students yet. But as the school year continues, usually we get more and more kids, and it definitely correlates with the school year. After the first quarter grades, it's usually when the kids start to come in higher numbers. One of the things we see a lot of is we see the kids that aren't involved in any activities, and then we see the kids who are definitely overscheduled, stretching themselves too thin in 4 or 5 AP classes, even though they may not be interested in chemistry at all. And then they do get to that breaking point. They do start to really, really struggle with their mental health, with their anxiety, with their depression. And then that's when hopefully they seek out help and support from the adults in their life and they start to get healthier. One thing that I would advise kind of all parents to look at is if your kid is starting to tack on a lot of different activities and a lot of sports and everything else, instead of asking like why maybe their grades are dropping, ask why they're trying to keep themselves so busy. What is it about downtime that maybe they're afraid of? Are they trying to get into this dream college, or are they trying to keep up with other people at school, or are they trying to mask some other issues that are going on? Some kids that we see, they suffer from so much anxiety and depression that they try to keep themselves so busy, so they're constantly like distracting from their mood and from their symptoms. So when they finally do have downtime, that's when all these thoughts and anxieties and everything just start coming in full force, and then they don't know how to deal with it. So asking kind of why they're overscheduling themselves is really important, and then listening to what they have to say and finding out what's really important to them. At Linden Oaks, we talk a lot about values and finding what's important to you and how to work towards those values. Because if you focus on goals, goals can be achieved. For example, Olympians, athletes, they may strive to get to the Olympics at some point. There's a high number of Olympians who have a lot of depression after they make it to the Olympics. Like after the games are done and they get back on their airplane and they come home. Well, they've achieved their goal. They don't have anything to work towards, so they really struggle with their mental health. That's one of the reasons why we work towards values and set goals. Values are something we can continually work towards. Goals are more, they have that end. So talking to your kid about what's important to them and how they can work towards those values is going to be really important. Maybe they're passionate about animals, so volunteering at that humane society. Yeah, that's definitely something we want to continue to encourage them to do. But if they're doing that AP Chem and they hate science, well, that doesn't really make sense. Let's take something that you really value and that's really important to you and you care about, and let's work towards that.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. This clip that I've already kind of picked out, it kind of goes along with this really well. And it's Robin Williams, so he's always nice.
May I come in?
If you bend your medial collateral ligaments, place one talus in front of another, and see where you have a problem. Of course, if there were a news story covering this event, the headline might read, "Small brain enters room."
Fingers. What's the answer?
Oh, you're another one of those bright young fellows who always know the right answer, huh? Welcome to real life. How many do you see?
There are 4 fingers, aren't there?
No. Look at me. You're focusing on the problem. If you focus on the problem, you can't see the solution. Never focus on the problem. Look at me. How many do you see? Now, look beyond the fingers. How many do you see?
Hey,
8. 8. Yes. 8's a good answer. See what no one else sees. See what everyone else chooses not to see. Fear, conformity, laziness. See the whole world anew each day. 2 days are well on the way. You need to see something here besides a crazy, bitter old man. You wouldn't have come in the first place.
What do you see when you look at me, Arthur?
You fixed my car. I'll see you around. Patch.
Has anyone else seen that movie? I think my favorite part is when he wears that red nose for the kids in the hospital. So I love the message that he's sending in that movie where you have to look beyond the problem and really look at the person and see what's going on with them. So all of you, you're here, so obviously you care about your kids. Really look at your kids. You know what's going to be too much for them and what's good for them. If you haven't seen them recently, well then you know that they need to have more family time with you. When I was in high school, of course I didn't like my parents and I definitely didn't like my brothers. But one thing I do remember is going out to dinner on Friday nights. We would go to this Mexican place in the city and we just had a great time. And my dad was beyond goofy and had the mariachi band playing music for us. But I still remember those dinners, and that's what I hope to have with my own kids. Those memories of that family time. So if kids are overscheduled, and of course as parents we're overscheduled too because we have to be the chauffeur. But then we're not having that quality family time together. So that's one thing that I hope everyone kind of takes from here is to have those family dinners, have those football Sundays where you get together with extended family and really just enjoy being with each other. Because as much as those teenagers pretend to not like it, I think at least part of them like it, at least a little bit, maybe a little bit, or at least you can have some really good food, and that encourages them to hang out with you. But family time is definitely important. Asking kind of those questions of, hey, what do you like about this club? What do you like about this sport? To really find out what the motivation is behind it. I think that can give you some good clues as to what's motivating them to do these different activities. Oh, and I have a kid story too for my daughter. So my daughter, she's a firecracker, where she's super, super sweet, but if she gets mad, she just kind of sparkles and everything. But we were trying to figure out what activities she wanted to do this year, and she talked about wanting to do gymnastics and play the piano and do like this engineering class. And I kept on asking her, like, well, what about dance? You just had a recital, you seem to really like it, like, should we get you signed back up again for it? And she said, no, Mom, there are just so many different things that I want to try that I'll do that another time. So for me as a mom to hear my little 6.5-year-old say that, I thought that was really great, and it taught me that, you know, she doesn't have to be in different activities like continuously. She can do something for a little bit, try something else, and then maybe go back to that ballet class again later. So I thought that was really great of her to kind of teach me that lesson, and a good thing that we can even use for our own kids as they get older. One of the other things I wanted to share was that we should definitely know kind of what our ultimate goal for our child is. I know for me, as young as they are, at the end of the day, I really just want my kids to be healthy, happy, and kind of a good person. I want them to be kind. And be able to support themselves when they're an adult. It doesn't really matter like how they do that. Well, it has to be legal. But other than that, like, they can do whatever, you know, state school, community college, Harvard, hopefully with a scholarship, but whatever, as long as they're happy. Because there have been kids who struggle so much that they end up taking their own life. And we don't want that to happen to anyone's kid. And obviously different communities have had that happen more than others recently. So we want our kids to be around for the future. You know, it doesn't matter really how many clubs and activities they're in, as long as they're doing okay. And hopefully they're having some fun in the meantime. So yeah, really kind of focus on what is ultimately important to you for your child. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Even if you're not sure where to turn, the school is an excellent resource. Linda knows there's always those numbers that you can call. If you're not sure where to go for help for your kid, just ask questions. People always know the answers, or they're willing to try to help you find those supports. I have my list of other things I wanted to focus on. Oh, and I had a new patient today. And it was kind of ironic that this happened today, but she came in, her child just had started a program, and she started high school, 3 weeks ago, and was like failing all of her classes. And I was talking to the mom, and she was saying that she had been just on her kid the last 3 weeks. What is going on with her classes? You just started high school, how can you be failing already? Little did she know that her daughter's been struggling with her mental health for years, and the additional stress of high school and starting a new school just became too much for her, and she wasn't able to handle the stress of school, social obligations, family stuff and everything else. Luckily, she was able to ask for help and then end up at our facility so she could get some help. But the mom really had that light bulb moment where she said, we'll figure out the whole college thing. You're a freshman, we have plenty of time. And she was really funny. She said, there are plenty of colleges that are willing to take my money as long as your GPA is at a certain level. So at the end of the day, we can figure out a way of getting your kid where they want to be. We got to keep them healthy so they can get there.
Hello? Real quick, before we move on, if you have questions, if you filled out those cards, please pass them up. Real quick, I don't know if you guys ever heard this quote. It's by John Lennon, and he said, when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, but it really is a good one. So I really wanted to be able to show you something. So I want to show you something really quick. If you can even look on your phones, you can look this up too. It's something that I show all my clients. So like I said earlier, I'm a clinical psychotherapist and gerontologist in private practice. And one of the things that we kind of tussle with everybody is the difference between feelings and fact. Because my job is feelings, but sometimes our feelings are not fact-based. So, something that I show everybody, it's right there. I'll show you where it is. So, we're going to load the slide. Keep going. Hi, Oprah. Hi, Oprah. Okay, keep going. There you go. Okay, this is called the Yerkes Dotson Law, and I love it. Something you can look up. You can look at this with your kids. You can look at this for yourself. This can be either life-changing or so baffling that you're angry. I hope it's the former. So basically, it's the relationship between arousal and performance. So our title of our presentation today was about overscheduled kids and frazzled parents, right? It's about, we are so, the word arousal has a really positive connotation, but sometimes it's not so good, right? And we all know, right, when we're not interested, it's nothing, right? We don't want to do anything. So as you go up that curve, right, the more interested you are, right, the more you're going to do something. So sometimes that's just, you have a deadline. You're like, oh, I'm more alert now because it's Wednesday and it's due on Friday, right? But what happens is there's that sweet spot right there where you have optimal arousal and optimal performance, right? That sweet spot's different for everybody. So for somebody that has anxiety or depression, or some kids that have trauma, or some kids that are just overloaded, right, that sweet spot, they just plunk right over it, and now they're into disorganization and depression and sadness, and they miss their window. When I have two kids, and they're older now, but when they were little, I would say to my husband, we have to leave. The wheels are falling off the bus here. Oh, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. And I'd say, then you are up with them all night, right? And then the next day he'd be like, you were right. I said, I'm always right, right? So you gotta find your sweet spot. And I think what everyone has talked about tonight is that, like, what's your sweet spot and how do you find it? Because your sweet spot might be different than their kids. So if you listen, right, if you're paying attention to what they're saying, but what they're doing, and what you're saying and what you're doing, you're gonna find that sweet spot, and you will know. So, and then the 4 questions too, those are great 4 questions. And we will have this presentation on our website and podcast and YouTube, but also too, I mean, we could probably put something together too that kind of, if you forget the 4 questions, we'll have them on our website for you, so you will know. So does anyone have any questions? Do we hand up any of those cards tonight? Yes, absolutely. Chris would like to share something.
I had put together a PowerPoint that I think Tim was going to put on the website, and on that has those 4 questions. But it also has coping strategies that I usually give to students. So it's on there. 2 of my favorite ones, 2 of the favorite ones that kids like. So that'll be on there also. And also a website that has that mindfulness for kids. That you go and look for that. So some strategies there that you can go on to. So that will be on there also. Awesome. This one.
Okay, Lauren, I knew this was going to be for you. And by the way, I teared up when she was talking. I'm a crier in general, but I mean, it was very, good for you, brave girl. So the question is, did you feel pressured by teachers during these stressful times? And also, thank you for speaking about your personal challenges. It takes a lot to speak up, and that is so true. It takes a lot. So did you feel pressured by the teacher?
Actually, a lot of my teachers I felt very supported by. Actually, one of my teachers came and visited and watched me today. She had to sneak out because she has 4 kids of her own at home. But she came to see me because I felt like a lot of them were actually really supportive, especially after I got the 504 plan. They were like, okay, how can I accommodate you? How can I help? I will say there's always that one that the first time I went back to school, I'd been gone for like a month, I missed his class. I went in to like get some marker, get some help. And the first thing he said to me is, so when are you taking your tests? And I was like, wow, I don't know what we've been doing for the last month, so probably not anytime soon. But for the most part, I really did feel encouraged and helped by my teachers once I talked to them and told them what was going on.
I have actually a quick question for you, Stephanie, and this is just one that I know I hear this a lot, but because I have a son that just went away to college, so he's been gone since the middle of August, and I'm in this parent group for the parents of the students at Bradley University, and some parents are writing these books about how stressed out they are, and I'm thinking, what's the worst thing a parent can do to stress their kid out when their kid is in college, and what's the thing they can do to help relieve that stress? Because I'm sure you've heard both.
That's an interesting question. We actually, in my college planning team, this is my little advertisement, I actually work with a former colleague of mine, who I worked with at the University of Miami, who now is a consultant working with parents of college students. So when your kids get into college, there are support groups for that as well, as you are doing. But so your question is, what's the worst thing you can do?
Well, can I know, basically so basically some of these parents are just nagging and nagging their kids. They're texting and texting, and the kids are saying, I'm fine. If I wasn't fine, I'd let you know.
Yes, again, of course it depends on the individual student and the family relationship. There's not one answer for this, but I think first of all, have a conversation with your child and say, so how would you like me to communicate with you? Now that you're off to college, how should we do this? Don't just text. Have a phone call and say, okay, I know you're trying to be independent. I'm being a parent to you. This is new to me too. How should we do this? What would you like from me? How can I be supportive but not nagging? How often would you like to talk? How often would you like me to text? What's good for you? It's now a parent to a young adult relationship. And just ask. So that's a good start. If you're really wondering where they went, are they not talking to you? Then you need to question that. But I think if you have an honest conversation, that's the first place to start. And then honor their answer to that. You can also negotiate that with them. But expect that they are a young adult. They will give you an answer that's probably pretty honest.
Okay, so I have a question that somebody asked me to ask, and I don't know, whoever wants to address this can address this, but I think it's important. So it was basically, this person said, and I'll do this one next, my daughter says she doesn't have time for chores now that school and activities have started, that it really stresses her out. How do I speak to that? And I can tell you what my answer was. My answer was, chores are probably just as important as anything else, but does anyone else have anything they'd like to add about that?
I mean, I can talk about chores.
I can talk about chores, but I mean, if that's something that you find your kids are saying, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that, I think you could speak to the fact that one of the indicators of success is being able to take care of your own stuff. Hold on.
We do see this a little bit when kids are in our program, but also at home, and especially when they start getting back at school. So what I would probably say back is, well, if you're just so busy that you can't do chores, I think we should set back your cell phone time and, take that away, because if you're so stressed that you can't, help out the household, well, then you definitely need to get rid of your cell phone. We gotta help your stress level. So I would kind of counter it with that. If they can manage the cell phone, well, yeah, they can take out the trash. So kind of play their game a little bit. You've been around longer, you can outsmart them.
Well, and if chores are a problem, I mean, kids should not have 2 hours of chores a day, but if they don't have 15 minutes to do their chores, that's a problem. Here's another comment. College may not be for every child. That may cause them stress. So how do you talk to them about these other options? Do you have any suggestions about talking to kids about other options and not hammering down about college? Anyone? Maybe without discouraging them, because it might sound like discouragement if you say, well, maybe college isn't for you. Want to start?
Of course, college isn't for everybody, and there are many options. So I think having that conversation, what are your goals? What do you want out of your next step? What do you see your life looking like? And sometimes you need I don't want to say a mediator, but sometimes you need a middle person to help look at that. Sometimes that's sort of a challenge from coming from a student to a parent. Well, I know you have expectations for me, and I know they're way too high. But it's an opportunity to have a conversation and maybe a chance to listen to your student in a way that you've never listened to them. I think our children really challenge us. And I think all of our panelists have really given us that opportunity to say, as a parent, this is a new way to begin to see your child. And to be able to say, stand back and say, how am I going to hear what my child, my late adolescent, my young adult has to say about their life? Again, a conversation. And then sometimes bringing in, not a mediator, but another listener to be able to say that. But yeah, college isn't for everyone. And there are many options to that. There's also the opportunity to come back to college at another time.
Did you want to add something to that, Jessica?
I was just gonna say, we'll encourage kids to look at the trades, like electricians and carpenters. They make great money. So just ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up. Again, we want our kids to be, productive and law-abiding citizens. If it's a trade, hey, go for it. There's awesome jobs out there. I'm sure that if you reach out to the different unions, they probably have some kind of program or something where they can maybe talk to someone and see what it's like. But I would definitely encourage them to look at other options if they're not interested in college or if it's not the right place for them. Okay, that's fine. Let's find out where you would fit in and how we can help you get that education.
Awesome. I just noticed you have a pug named Tag Holder. Another thing that you had mentioned earlier was values, examining your values as opposed to your goals. And I think that's another thing as a therapist who I work with 13 and up, and I used to work with all ages, but now I sort of focus on older. But talking to your kids about a life worth living, what you want your life to look like. I think as an adult, because it's all adults here, you're going to model how to not be overscheduled. Because if you're running around saying, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, and they see that, and they see, I don't have the option not to be busy. Well, if we're not in charge of our own lives, then who is? Who decides? Who tells you that you can't say no? Right? Because no is an absolute, complete sentence if you want it to be. You do not owe anybody an explanation. Somebody asked a question here. It says, my freshman daughter just got involved in color guard. The hours are nuts, but she wants to do it. Why are these hours allowed? And that's an interesting question because, and the reason I started with who decides is that, so the schools, I can only say that the schools set hours, but as a parent, you are the one in charge, right? These are extracurricular activities. If it is too much for your child, you talk with the band director, choir director, coach, or you talk to your child and you encourage your child to talk to the coach, right? To get those skills and to self-advocate. Because when they learn how to use their voice, they can say, this is what I'm dealing with. I want to do all these things. How can you help me? The vast majority of the time, they're going to have somebody who's willing to work with them. It's very, very unusual that somebody from the school is going to say, well, too bad for you. They will work with you. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Before you leave real quick, I just forgot to mention before, we have a woman here tonight, Kathy Bertrand.
So I'm going to try to translate because so one of the reasons why we do the questions the way that we do them in this forum is everybody has a story, and we want to try to get a snapshot of what the question is that you're looking for. So I want to piggyback on that question though that was just asked about the school component, and and I had someone in the audience ask me and kind of try to conceptualize what they're trying to deal with all of the pressures of those different extracurricular activities, and how the individual was telling me that her daughter is in choir right now, and choir has now increased the amount of practice times, and then she's also involved in another activity with their place of worship, which has now increased the amount of time and the amount of activity. So how best to kind of manage that? And I guess the question is for the panel and for any of the school officials as well, is how best to manage those situations, and how to best kind of deal with that. So am I getting the question kind of correct? Am I getting it right? The kind of the squeeze, and we talked about some of those, and how family time then gets squeezed out, or one of those things gets squeezed out. So that's, I would like to try to get that question answered if it's possible.
It's a tough one.
Look at it.
Okay, so one of the big things I have to say as far as that goes is I have often been part of my school's stage crew, which is like behind the scenes of the plays and the musicals, and the week before the play or the musical is something we call Hell Week, because you're there from right after school till like 9 o'clock at night, and it's insane because you're getting down those exact details, and like it's absolutely nuts. But for instance, during that particular week, the teachers know what's going on because it's part of the school, because it's been communicated to them, and they're a little more lenient. I'm not saying your kids' teachers will always be like, oh yeah, just wait, hold it off, I understand you're busy. But there are certain exceptions where the teachers will work with the students on an individual basis as long as it's communicated, and even more so, the clubs and the leaders of the clubs or choir or whatever know that education has to be the top priority, because if your students' grades are slipping, we're not allowed to be part of that club anymore at a certain point, so they know that that takes priority. And so again, you just have to talk to people and stay communicated for it to work.
I do think this is part of the ultimate challenge that can be an opportunity to work with your student and say, how can you manage this? My own children went through this. You've got that chair. How many legs can be on your chair? Learn to manage. Challenge and support. A balance of challenge and support. You are the manager of your own life, and they're young. Of course they're young, but this is an opportunity to say, how much can you do? What do we need to take off the plate? What do we need to keep on? What do you want to do? What are your priorities? This is such an opportunity for them learning, them beginning to take charge of their own priorities, and saying, well, and just processing it through with you, and you helping them take charge of that. Yes, the school expects this. My place of worship expects this. My job expects this. Walking it through with them and showing them, to the best of your ability, what are the priorities, how can you make the choices as the person in charge of your life, who can you maybe negotiate with, should you talk to the coach, can you talk to the band director? I remember my own children having to deal with, my band director expects us to be at this, and I'm in cross country at the same time, and they expect this. I can't believe the school is, but they are. Band director and coach are both fighting with each other. That's the way it was. And that's not a bad thing. That is real life. So how do we balance that? You can't completely lay that all on the shoulders of your 10th grader, but to model, how do we make this decision? What can we be in control of? What do we need to go talk to the coach or the band director or whomever about? Can you step away from the youth leadership at the place of worship for a while? Modeling with your student that process so that they learn how to make those kinds of decisions. Awesome.
Just before we end tonight, we have a woman here tonight, Kathy Bertrand. She was instrumental in putting this Plainfield Parent Community Network together, and she's left our district, but a big part of the reason that we're here tonight is because she's made this happen. So thanks, Kathy, for showing up and being here. We have a plaque for you, because plaques show you care, and we are so grateful for you. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and if you have any other questions, you can find us on Facebook, because everybody's on Facebook. Our website is plainfieldparentcommunitynetwork.org. Are we .org? We're .org. Yep. And just, hopefully we'll have stuff up soon. So if you have any questions, please reach out. And if you can fill out those surveys, that would be great. If any of you are here and would like to get the CPDUs or CEUs, we have forms for those. And I think that's it. Is that it? That's it. Thanks for coming.